This is a non-duality discussion group hosted by me, Art Pinsof, for Nothing Media. And so far we have 4 people in this Zoom meeting. So anyone who wants to join the discussion in the Zoom meeting, feel free to. So far we have 4 people in this Zoom meeting. So anyone. Okay. Yeah, so feel free to join with the Zoom link, which I believe is posted in the YouTube comments and the Facebook comments. Yeah. So this is a discussion group for people to share and explore, ask questions or whatever without, in hope of getting an answer necessarily, but more from a place of exploration. And my mind has a lot of answers, but I think it's just dead knowledge. As J. Krishnamurti said, if you repeat the words you hear here at this speech, they'll turn to dust as soon as they come out of your mouth. You know, I could only speak about my own experience, what's happening in this moment. And yeah, so it's interesting, you know, there's so many speakers on non-duality, and I think this is going to continue to explode in variety of expression, just like these different colored roses behind me, which is from the Portland Rose Test Garden in Oregon. It's life is variety, you know, and non-duality is pointing to that which remains unchanged within the variety. But how do you express that? You can only express that how you express that, how you experience that, you, no one else. The way in which Ramana or Nisargadatta or Tony Parsons or anyone expresses it is totally perfect because it's flowing through them in that way, and it can't be any different. And the same is true for people who have no interest in this supposed alleged subject of non-duality. You know, like I feel like my mom expresses this perfectly, even though she has no interest in it. When I talk to her about it, she gets it and has no interest in it. And I feel like this is, so I don't really know what this is that we discuss here. You know, I was talking to someone here, Perini, she was bringing up my conversation with Giselle that went up last week on Nothing's YouTube channel. And I really like how Giselle talks about sandboxes that you could play in. And pretty much any experience or expression is its own sandbox. And it could be explored and expressed, experienced, as long as it feels comfortable or fun or interesting. And if it changes, then you could change too, because life is nothing but change. The moment you feel like you shouldn't change or can't change, I think this is when something that is expressing freedom becomes a dogma, or something where you have to go back to an authority to get their approval of what the right thing to think or do is, as opposed to just feeling your own intuition of what feels right to do. And, you know, you often hear one of the most common questions that non-dual speakers get asked is, well, because of non-duality, how will it affect my relationship? Or how does it affect your view on morality or your actions in the world politically, or all these sorts of things? And the answer that pretty much most teachers give is there's no one way that it will affect anybody. That, you know, one person may decide to be alone for a while when they find this message and to be with themselves. Another person might feel the total opposite. They might feel all of a sudden more encouraged and supported in a way to connect with others and explore relationships with friends and whatever. One person may want to be more politically active, another person might want to take a break from that. And there's no right or wrong way from the perspective of non-duality. Paul Hederman talks about how this is a lighter way of living, in a way, that things become lighter. I think about the nature of reality could, the way I see it in one way is light is shedding light to light. Love is loving love. And the way that's experienced would be for things to appear lighter. And that'll just show up differently for everyone. And there's so many just beautiful ancient sayings that get repeated in new language. Like first there's mountains, then there's no mountains, then there's mountains again. I love that one because it's very simple and it expresses so much. Parini, who I was just talking to, was expressing how there was a shift, to explore different sandboxes, as Giselle puts it. I would say there's mountains again, perhaps, where there's a period where hearing the message of there are no things, there is no doer, is so electrifying and liberating. And maybe one never needs to leave that message because it's so clear and pure and liberating. But then for others like me, Giselle, perhaps Parini, it's like then something else becomes interesting. And you could feel that there's no separation. It's okay to, Emerson was just talking about the movie he watched last night. It's okay to enjoy a movie or do anything. And it sounds ridiculous that I feel the need to say it's okay to enjoy a movie, but it's just some people, this message can be very confusing, which is why it's good to have spaces like this where people can just discuss and explore what it's like for them. And that's, I think I've said enough for now. Now I could open it up. Let's see, Parini, we were just having a discussion right before the stream started. Would you like to share anything about what you were saying?
Yeah. So what I was saying is, for a bit I was listening to the direct messages, like Naho says, or Tony Parsons, and at that moment you feel that this is it. I mean, I'm not never going to change. Like somewhere in your mind, these stories are going on where you think that this is it, and there is never anything else that is going to take place because it's nothing. And you start believing what they are saying because you think they know something more than and like I listened to the messages like for a week or week and a half, and then automatically it didn't interest me anymore, and suddenly the old interests came back. And I think it is perfect. I mean, whatever I was listening to, it's just perfect for where I am at. I mean, I don't know if that makes sense, but whatever comes to me is what I need, I want. I mean, I am longing for in a way. So everything is perfect. All the sandboxes are fun. I mean, there is no right, wrong. I mean, that is what I feel myself expanding towards or going towards, where I'm realizing, I mean, nothing is wrong. I mean, everything is fine. Even a murderer is okay. I mean, everything is just perfect as it is. Yeah, I think that's what I was. And somewhere, we stop trusting ourselves when we're listening to a speaker and the messages are changing. You start thinking they are somewhere right, even if you know what is right for you. Sometimes you just don't want to believe it. So sometimes we just need the clarity, and everything keeps changing like every moment. I don't know if it's making sense, but that's what I was going through for the last month. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And is there any particular interest that has come up like for me, I don't know, I've had some Kundalini experiences recently, energy stuff, and relationship stuff a little bit, which again is all non-duality. But I'm just curious, is there anything that was sort of came up along with this for you?
Yeah, I think creativity is something that has come up, or like it's I just feel very creative. Like, I for a long time I've been in this period where I was alone and I was working on myself and kind of healing, doing all of it, and suddenly I just don't feel the need to heal anything. I mean, I just think there is nothing to heal anymore. I mean, it's just, and once you're out of that loop or that inner game where you're just running round and round and you just step outside. I mean, I was talking to Giselle about it. It just feels like I've just stepped outside and suddenly I feel everything is right here. I mean, all the creativity to explore, especially, and moving into the world and not worrying about, energies and anything of that sort, because it just feels very free, and creation and creativity is something that has been explored. That's what I feel. And ease. And because there is ease, there is creativity. I feel it's quite correlated.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. What I'm hearing, what you're saying is that before you found this message of Naho and Tony Parsons and all these, that there was maybe a trying to get somewhere, finished or perfected or healed with these things.
Uh,
And now there's a more
sorry,
peace there, you said.
sorry to interrupt, but in fact, before I was listening to Naho or Tony Parsons or Jim New, I was feeling that I need to reach somewhere, and after listening to them, in fact, that has shifted, and because the creativity has explored again, I am back. Um, I'm not. I mean, I don't want the direct messages anymore because I feel I got what I wanted. I mean, I understood. I understood at some level what they were trying to say. So it was perfect for that time, and that is why I am at more ease to explore the creativity. But I know that that message was for me at for that moment, and it was in perfection. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I love creativity, so I encourage that. That's great. Thank you, Parini.
Yeah, thank you.
And creating from a place of ease, so much better, so much better than from a place of anxious needing to get somewhere or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
John.
Hey, Art, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
Good. So I just wanted to say, I like what you guys are doing because, the Zoom thing is kind of new to me, but it's nice to be able to, in a sort, have a kind of fellowship with people from all over the world, even because, I don't know where in everybody's own situation, but a lot of times in our family and friends, we don't have many people to kind of, they're not really that open in this, in sharing this. And it's not trying to like get anybody to understand or anything, but sometimes when you are experiencing things or opening and understanding, you want to share it just out of a natural desire, not even to, and quote unquote, to try and open somebody's mind or teach someone, but just to see other people around the country and the world that, have the same enthusiasm for this is it's nice. But I just wanted to ask, I've had some of my bigger breakthroughs with Ilona's technique, which was just looking for myself, relentlessly. And then that caused the breakthrough where I could never really identify as that body or that person. And then the non-doership from reading Ramesh and Wayne Lickerman, and then also Paul Hederman, who really did it. It just, that which comes after, the thought that comes after and the claiming. But I was listening to Emerson a little bit on a video, and I know you guys seem to have a lot of your non-duality speakers are from that school, more of the Tony Parsons and Richard Sylvester and Naho and a few others, Jim Newman. And I've listened to them, and I heard Emerson say he was someone I can relate to in a way, putting lots of effort in for a long time, and you seem to get tired, and then a breakthrough happens. But I don't totally. I've listened to that message, or maybe it's a non-message, with Tony and Jim Newman and Naho, and I wonder what it is that I'm not quite resonating with. I feel it seems to me like there's a sense, this is probably, this is from my mind, but like they're describing like a sort of spiritual lottery. Like maybe you'll play the Powerball and you might win, and probably you won't, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And I wonder how you guys have been able over time, listening to them frequently, sort of get the right perspective, in a sense, to understand their message, and maybe how I'm maybe viewing it wrong, maybe not wrong, but just from a place where I'm just not seeing their message clearly. Yeah,
absolutely, John. I'll comment on that and then pass it off to Ben. That's his hand raised. And again, anyone watching this on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to click on the Zoom link to join us if you'd like. What comes to mind for me, John, is I first encountered this kind of radical non-duality message maybe in 2004 or something. A friend of mine told me about Yuji Krishnamurti, and I saw some video on YouTube or the internet where he talked about enlightenment and how he seemed to be saying that he had become enlightened, but he said that he couldn't tell you how to do it. And so it did have this weird feeling of a lottery, where he said something shifted for him, but there's nothing he can offer to you or tell you how to get there yourself. And I just didn't listen to him again for 15 years. I thought, well, why would I listen to you then? Like it was like, okay, good for you, Right. But the way that I see it now is that there is a very subtle point that's being made, perhaps, with that kind of messaging, and it does have to do with the suffering that comes with seeking. Tony has described what he does at his meetings as starving the seeking energy. So people come. I saw this one discussion with him where he said him and his wife Claire that they wonder why anybody comes to see them from around, because people come from around the world, and sometimes they wonder, why does anyone even come here when we have nothing to offer, and we're only going to starve that seeking energy that brought them here. And then he said simultaneously, him and his wife Claire wonder why everyone doesn't come, because because it feels great, and it's like you said, it feels good to be in the company of others who resonate with this sort of thing. So that's my response to what you said. And Ben, I see you lowered your hand, but you can unmute yourself if you'd like to still speak.
Yeah. Hey. Just 1 second. Sorry. Excuse me. Everything's okay. All right. Hello.
Hey.
Okay. What had come to mind for me was what Art and I have talked about in the past, like the trouble with integration, or like embodiment, like living life beyond the like radical non-duality. And I could be wrong, but yeah, I feel that when things are being described on the radical non-duality level, it can be harder to click with, and it can be harder to integrate it into like your everyday complexes and things that you deal with. And I think that that disconnect maybe comes from, like for some people it does happen to just like come more intuitively. But I feel like when it does come more intuitively, it's harder to communicate or relate it because it was like less of a process and more of a flash. And so you can't really describe a flash, right? How to get there. But yeah, I think that's definitely where talking about it and having these kinds of spaces is good. Because then I think that's like what Romano would say is like clearing doubts. You can explore where it feels disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, I mean, one of my friends, like Maggie, she says this is where the work is. The work is in the relative. There's no work to be done in non-duality. And I guess it doesn't have to feel like work, but it's enjoyable work. It's like it's the work of the lotus flower opening up, you know, receiving more sunlight, more photosynthesis, you know, more expression, more appearance of what's underneath the petal when it opens. You know, this unfolding, it's not really art or Ben or Perini. It's just life unfolding, appearing as art, Ben, and Perini, and Tony, and Romana. I mean, Romana was very clear that you are not the body, and that this is the only choice that you have, in a sense, is whether you just take it for granted that you are the body or you inquire into who you are. And he didn't give an answer to what you are. He didn't say you're nothing or you're God or you're everything. He just said, ask yourself, you know, who are you? And this opens up. This is the opening of the flower. And whether that happens in a silent samadhi or this happens while making a painting, this is all just the unfolding of life to itself. As this. And let's see, who else would like to share? Oh, Perini, feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I mean, regarding this, you know, I felt that there is nothing called as non-duality. I mean, it, in fact, it seems all accepting. I mean, even going astray, even trying the modalities of spirituality, that is not, it seems like it's not accepted in the non-dual thing, which is nothing. But even that is encompassed in that non-duality that the speakers here are talking about. So it's funny sometimes because everything is accepted, nothing is, but we feel that, you know, non-duality is kind of saying no to a few things, which it is not. I mean, so yeah, everything is encompassed in the, even the seeming going astray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean, this is the dance of all inclusiveness and nothing. You know, this is the dance of yin and yang, masculine, feminine, of neti, not this, and then what Nancy Nethercutt calls the fullness rushing back in, and there's no longer feels like any need to deny necessarily anything, just go with the flow of it. And so, yeah, I think I missed part of what you said, Perini, unfortunately, but I hope I got the gist of it there with my response. I mean, but yeah, but that's the thing where you can't. That's why no one can tell anyone what they need. You know, the radical non-dual message is very clear and direct. But then where you go from there is totally individual. It's totally individual, and some individuals are going to resonate with continuing meditation or trauma work or, you know, creative expression. Others will just want to stay in silence or just want to attend meetings as well, where people resonate with the very, often repetitive sounding on the surface message of there is no one happening, nothing's happening. But yeah, when I listen to Tony or Jim or Naho, I feel like a raw electricity. I feel like the way they talk, it feels like I'm just grabbing like an electrical cable. And so I really love the beauty of that. It just seems like it's not my way to talk that way. And I feel like I just seem to resonate, at least for now. This could change at any point, but I resonate more with this just exploration, here as art, and also with other people, hearing what's happening for them. And yeah, let's see. Phyllis, it's great to have you here, Phyllis. Do you feel like sharing? Well, you can unmute yourself later if you do. Let's see, anyone else? Lance, Randy, Steve, Houston? Any of you can feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to say something. And Howard?
Oh, I'll share. I'll share. Like I'm at a meeting, I will share.
Please.
I'm trying to recover from well, yeah, programming. I like what you said earlier, Art, about like this is where the work is, in that in the human realm. Like there's nothing to do in the awareness of whatever it is, complete non-duality. Because I try to stay away from like speaking abstractly. I know it's kind of hard, and I haven't listened to any of the people anybody's mentioned here, with the exception of John Hederman, who's pretty wild. Listening to him, it's kind of like really, really, it's like my brainstem just feels all weird and tingly. So he has a really interesting effect. But I was thinking about this idea of self, like what is self? People have been discussing that, like the I am, and like the difference between like what is that, like that. For me, it's like a singularity, a single point of awareness, aware of being aware. And then there's like this kind of quote unquote, this me that sort of seems to arise in response to my environment, what's around me. And, it has all the, my wants and strategies and so forth. And I can really feel the difference, like when I'm in that kind of me mode of consciousness, I'm sort of not really present. I'm not really embodied. I'm not like, and if I am like engaged with someone, I tend to go on like habitual thought patterns and, getting triggered and, everything that goes with that. But when I'm able to like step back, so to speak, in this, like this kind of, it's not like this clear, calm sense of ease and this lightness. I mean, these are all just words, but it just feels for like this, I'm just aware of being aware. And it just feels really delightful. And then I start to notice that this me is just kind of acting out some part, it's like, it doesn't even have a choice, it just sort of does things, according to a formula or a predetermined set of rules. And it's interesting to kind of watch it, play out. And then knowing that that's not who I really am. So, and I've read, with, like Nisargadatta says, like the I am kind of, it has to do with the body, comes into being with the body, and at death it leaves. But he seems to be really clear that there's something beyond, this I am, which I know it seems like a lot of people just don't want to go there. They don't want to, like, oh, then you're talking about God or the supreme, and yet, I've often had these kinds of experiences. It's just not really an experience, but just an awareness of this. It's like there is no me or an I am in it. It's just like pure beingness, and it has this really, really starkly different quality than my normal mode of consciousness. And but it just sort of, and when I move away, it just kind of arises from seemingly nowhere, and then it shifts, and it felt like it seemed so clear in that moment, and then yet when it shifts, and then it felt like that was a dream, but yet like I know that what I'm actually living here in this 3D reality is quote unquote the dream, and it's really it's just a fun place to play. I don't know, I'll tell you that. It's really but I've been gotten kind of, I don't know, annoyed and just sort of dismayed with a lot of the contentiousness in the non-dual community I've encountered on like exploding rainbows, and and I think it's just my stuff, like, oh, who's this person? They're setting themselves up as the authority on existence, and they seem to be saying that my experience should conform to theirs because what they're seeing must be universal, and and yeah, it's kind of hard. It's like, well, you can't really argue with it, but then there's something in me that just like, well, no, that's not my experience, and yet there's no space for an expression of my particular experience, which is just different, but I think there's all, at the end of the day, there's simply just this nameless reality that always is, and that's where we are at this moment.
Yeah. Thanks, Randall. Gosh. Yeah, brings to mind a lot of things for me, and it's Paul Hederman opens some of his meetings by saying, this is a meeting about non-duality, but we're only going to discuss duality. And that's pretty clear. That's pretty much it. He said that he went to meetings for a long time where he would see people trying to express what you are, this wholeness, whatever you want to call it, and he would see that would be claimed by what you're not.
Yeah.
That would be claimed by the personality, the ego, and people call this, a spiritualized ego, or and this sort of thing. Yeah, in the realm of duality, that's what makes these discussions so fun for me, is that there's no end to it. There's no end. And
yeah.
And even when you listen to a talk from Naho, or I was listening to Naho yesterday, she was on, or Jim Newman. I used to really love listening to Jim Newman a whole lot. It's hard to know. I actually enjoy the interactions they have with people asking questions, and in a sense, this is all the realm of duality. It's the seeker trying to get clarification about something, and then it's the speaker, the apparent Jim, giving this very clear answer, and it's like this beautiful dance. It's like jazz. It's like music. It's just a duet where they play off of each other. And there's no teacher without a seeker, and no seeker without a speaker. And
that's where the life is.
Yeah, it's life, and it's to get a little bit more out there on a tangent. I mean, right now it's the spring equinox in tomorrow, or maybe today in some parts of the world. So it's this balance. It's this halfway point between the hot, the hottest day, or the most sun, and the least amount of sun, basically. And this is in our DNA. We evolved on a planet that has ebbs and flows everywhere, and this is one that our ancestors have evolved along with for millions of years. I don't think of it astrologically, this equinox. I think of it more as just a very deep rhythm in our bodies, just like, if you go to sleep at a certain time in the night, you go to deeper dream states. And yeah, and that's a bit of a tangent, but my point there is everything in life has an ebb and flow. It's as old as life itself on this planet since the Big Bang. You have electrons, protons, and everything has this masculine, feminine component, for lack of a better word. You could call it yin and yang, just yeah, the underlying okayness with what is, and the excitement to just always come up with a new idea. And then between those two poles, life endlessly dances, it seems. And non-duality is not separate than that, because non-duality is not a thing. Like Randall, you were talking about the culture of certain groups within the non-duality bigger culture, which is hilarious. So a thousand years from now, I hope not, but there could be the great non-duality wars of 2100 or the year 3000. But I mean, that's basically what reality is. It's people debating, going back and forth, and all of this lovely play as well. It's the sandbox play, and it's and recognizing that's what it is, that it's the play, recognizing that it's not you doing it, it's life doing itself.
Yeah.
Then there's more freedom to go another direction if needed, or whatnot. Yeah, Houston, would you like to say something? I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything. Sometime in the past that here in this being, time goes funky. Past and present and future, lots of times they're all jumbled up. But the part that cracks me up, that makes me laugh, is that language that we're using right now with one another, just on the surface level, are labels and meaning and stuff like that, all came out of the apparent working of no thing through the separate me, because before that there was no meaning. Then we create language or labels and then put different meanings on each label, and then we have difficulty in duality communicating using language. And then we go to the non-dual community, and the only thing we have to communicate is the same language with the meanings that were added in duality, and we're trying to explain all of it. So the frustration is whether it's dual or non-dual, it seems that the same frustration is there because language is so funky. Because, for example, we use labels and we think we know what we mean. If I say house, everybody pictures a house, but they don't picture the same house. Car, cat, dog, tree, lake, everybody pictures a different one. And those are things we can actually see and touch. But then we use those other words like respect and trust and love and this and the other. Everybody has totally different meanings for those, but when we use them, we think everybody means what we mean. So it's just, that's real humorous to me. It strikes me as funny that someone tells a poem and it draws however many people that are reading the poem, it draws a different picture in every single one of those person's minds. And we all think it's the same picture. That's, to me, that's the cosmic joke fracking off, just having a good time. I can't see anything but mostly humor in myself and everything else. And the more I think about it, the more exciting it feels. The more in this body, the feeling of joy and peace and that sort of stuff shows up. So
Yeah.
That's my, you know, you know, I understand. And it's interesting in the non-duality community, the same sort of structure that's in the duality community seems to appear, like Randall was talking about, uh, you know, cliques or different, like you said a while ago about the war that might happen in non-duality many years from now, whatever. It's the same sort of thing that happens in non-duality. But then I think, well, all non-duality, all duality is an expression of non-duality, because everything that's in duality is already in non-duality. It's just both there at the same time, happening simultaneously. And you mentioned the yin yang symbol, and I got to thinking about that. I thought before it was black and white with the dots in it, it was all gray, and then somehow it organized into the black and white with the dots, and then it became it went from oneness, not to duality, to what I call triality. Had to be three, because you can't have two. You got to have something that separates the two. And if you give that credence, or you put a label on it, now you've got three aspects. You got oneness, then you got the two, and whatever's holding those two apart is part of that oneness. So
Yeah.
it just cracks me up. It's that circle, that's humor back on itself, that uh, and then we do what we do in duality, and we take it seriously, which is funny in itself too. That's funny to me too, because
Yeah.
I do it. Me, I mean, I do it. Sometimes I'll take something seriously, and then all of a sudden I'll start laughing at it, because I'm going, look what I'm doing. Look what's happening here. You know.
Yeah.
So that's the little bit I know. That's what shows up here every now and then.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Houston.
Right.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. It's very yeah, I mean, this goes back to the Vedas, what you said about the three arising from the one. There's a word in Sanskrit for that I don't remember, but it's yeah, it's amazing how there's only so much that could be said about this, and yet it's endlessly interesting, entertaining, and I really do hope. I see the beauty in both sides. I see the beauty in the clarity of, the message, so to speak, in a meeting with Naho or Jim Newman. I mean, that's incredible. It's incredible that we could just be redirected back to the reality that we can't know anything, and that there's no one to know. And, this is where this feels really good to me. But then this, just freedom to express whatever and be wrong, knowing that even being wrong is right. Even being wrong is what's happening, and there is no right or wrong. So why do we have to have these sacred cows of how things can and can't be expressed? So some questions that came in from YouTube. Yasmin asks, what is there to quote unquote integrate? It is all what is already. Absolutely. So from the non-duality perspective, this is wholeness, and nothing could be done to change it because it is whole already. Who would be the one to change it, or that it would be changing for? You are it. There's no distinction or separation from, object, subject, and doing. As Houston was pointing out there, the one appearing as three, as, wholeness, then the yin yang appears, and with the yin yang, there has to be a line between the two. There has to be a description of what is the yin doing to the yang? What is the yang doing with the yin? What's going on here? But then that's the way it appears to our body minds. That's the way it appears to this brain, this central nervous system, that, it woke up from sleep, and it's, it turned on Zoom, and it's copying and pasting messages for logistical reasons. And Ben has his hand raised. This is all story that is arising as non-duality arising as this, as Jim might say, which I wholeheartedly agree with. And yeah, Ben, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to start with I love it. The way that y'all are vibing off each other, I think it's working really well and tying together really well. And I guess I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the kind of connections I was making between what everyone's been saying. And yeah, I thought what Houston said was perfect in relation to the difficulties and misunderstandings and the returns to being attached or invested or taking it seriously that inevitably happen. Like it ties back beautifully because yeah, it is different for everyone else. For each individual. And so talking about it, we get like maybe some peace, but yeah, I think that's where like Art and I have talked about like the idea of non-dual gaslighting or like spiritual bypassing. It's like, it feels like, it can feel like to some people when you're talking on the like absolute radical non-dual level, it can feel like dismissal of the difficulties that come with the inertia of the mind, the karma of those complexes and those stories. And yeah, I think that's, yeah, again, it's kind of what I said already, but that's, I think, the beauty of getting to talk about these things is in talking and in being honest, we get closer and closer to understanding each other and ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah. As my friend Maggie says, that's where the work is. It's in the relative. It's not in the non-dual. So getting to know each other better is part of the work of being human, apparently, I would say. Randall, try to avoid that non-duality war of 2010.
Maybe we're doing that right now. We're changing the future.
Yeah, but it's also worth saying that we never know where things end because there is no end, there is no beginning to reality. So we stop one war and we may plant the seed for another without realizing it. So I don't mean to suggest I'm trying to solve a problem with this meeting.
No, I know. I'm just, it's just kind of a nice way to have fun with words and ideas.
Yeah,
a little humor with it. But no, I wanted to address I guess it was Yasmin's question. Well, like, what is there to integrate? I think
she asked, what is there to integrate if it is all what is already?
Yeah, well, that's like, to me, this, I mean, none of this would happen without us being in a body, without me being a body. And for a lot of my time on this journey, I've been like all here, like on the abstract realm, you know, and then the way some people describe it, it's like, this is like the horizontal level of reality. And it's mostly pretty abstract, you know, it's ideas and concepts and strategies and what have you. And then there's the vertical realm where, you know, there's just like this whole channel of beingness connects us to, you know, an idea of something whole and undivided and unchanging down, you know, to this physicality of being, you know, in a body on a planet, you know, material existence, so to speak. So for me, what there is to integrate essentially is just to like let that wholeness come to the foreground, and that, you know, me playing a part as Randall recedes to the background. And it's, you know, it's still there, but it doesn't take over. It doesn't take precedence. You know, I can just sort of watch it go through its machinations and enjoy it and not judge it. Not think, oh man, why'd you do that? Not again. Jesus, when are you ever going to learn, dude? it's just much more enjoyable. So just on a lot of levels, but to me, that's what integration has been like.
Yeah.
So that's all I got on that.
Yeah, thanks, Randall. Yeah, I think that's what Paul calls traveling lighter for the action figure. Yeah.
Right. Paul Hitterman, not John Hitterman. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Well, thanks, Randall. Yeah, Glenn says, is joy, I'm going to read these questions from Glenn J from YouTube. Is joy unconditional love the goal for nobody, for any nobody? And then she says, in other words, does this appearance or dreaming have a baseline of fundamental purpose or desire to express unconditional love? Yeah, so I would just say, Glenn, this term unconditional love has been popularized by Tony Parsons and, repeated by others like Jim Newman, perhaps because it has a clarity to it for many people. And to be very specific about the way Tony and Jim talk about unconditional love, they would be referring to what is. They would be using that as a word for reality, not to express something longed for, but something that already is, which would include what's longed for and what is not longed for. So, I think we just have to accept this. There's different words people use for this, and unconditional love, that's an interesting one, because when we think of love, or we think of a mother's love as being pretty close to unconditional, and but this unconditional love will often come along with some pretty extreme examples of things that people wouldn't consider love at all, like suffering. So, yeah, I'm just responding to the words you used there, Glenn. So I think that's a bit of a loop to ask, is joy or is unconditional love the goal for any nobody? It's a nice koan to ask that question. I don't think there's an answer to that question. Phyllis, but I'd love to hear what Phyllis has to say. Go ahead.
Just bouncing off that question is that there is no goal. A goal would mean there's somewhere to get to. And if there is no location, there is nowhere but here. And even here is an expression, just a location where the body appears to appear and then disappears in the next moment. It's always this moment, then next moment, next moment, next. So there is no goal, because who would the goal be for? A goal would be for the person, for personhood, to feel better. And that's what the me is. And that's what seeking is. And the individual cannot help but want a goal. It wants to feel better, or it wants ice cream, or it wants to not have a headache, or it wants to be enlightened. It's all the same thing. That's the definition of the person, is the seeker who is looking for a goal, who has a goal. Says, aha, once I get this thing, whatever it is, be it enlightenment, a Mercedes, or the hot blonde next door, whatever it is, or tickets to the next football game. As soon as I achieve that goal, I will feel good, because that's what the me wants. The me is all about feeling good about itself, having a better experience. Me wants a better experience. And Art, as one of your new favorites, Matt Kahn, says, me, M-E, me is a momentary experience.
I love it.
Yeah, all me wants is more, better, and best, and next. And there is none. This is a totally destructive and disappointing message, I would say, for the seeker. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go from here. But in that nowhere to go, and no goal, no meaning, no purpose, it doesn't matter. No good, no bad, no right, no wrong. In that there is total freedom. And there can be a kind of ecstasy in that. It's totally free. It can be free to be your perfect lover, and you get those tickets to the football game, and you do win the lottery, huh? And maybe something happens, and the person disappears for a while. Like I don't know who was saying, and you get that rush of feeling of pure being, and so the me does get good things happening to it, and that's life. That's the beauty of life too, huh? That's the beauty of life in duality, is we have wonderful experiences. Huh? If there is a purpose, it's just to enjoy your life, because there's nothing else you can really do about it to make it better. There's no path, there's no technique, there's nothing that's going to get you closer to where you already are. So you might as, I think it's Ramesh said that, so you might as well enjoy your life. In any given moment, just enjoy. But do what you feel like doing, because that's what you're going to do anyway. If there's no chooser and no choice, you're going to do what you're going to do anyway. So why become desperate about it? Why analyze it? Why, if the person is drawn towards analysis of it, that's perfect too. But if you're in a situation, know that it couldn't be any different. You're not responsible. You are not God's little helper or the devil's little helper. You did nothing wrong to deserve something that's apparently bad that's happening to you, be it cancer or heart failure or COVID or not getting enlightened. Nothing you could have possibly done could ever have led you to another moment than what is right here. And you are not God's little helper. You did nothing to make this happen. And in that, there is that whoosh of freedom, huh? In the whole body. The Kundalini just says, go, live, huh? Enjoy. If there is a purpose, I'd say growth. The bee wants growth, like the lotus flower. Everything wants to grow. And some of us, in wanting to grow, are drawn to this strange message. Probably 99% of the world cares about getting a better Mercedes, huh? Or a better apartment. And some of us, unfortunately, are bitten by this mystical mosquito, and we can't get away from this stuff, huh? It's like our addiction. We want to know why. And there is no answer. That's the beauty, the freedom of it is, whoosh, there is no answer.
Yeah.
No answer. So you just, in any moment, Ramesh said, do what you feel like. Feel free, This non-duality thing is just whispering freedom. It's not whispering, no, you, and you can't do anything about it. It's not a negative message. It's a message of great freedom, huh?
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I just muted you, Phyllis. Did you have something else to say?
Yeah, and even talking about it, like Ben was saying, the sharing of it. We can't, Michael Markham says we don't know our beauty. We can never know our beauty except we reflect it off the other. We're all mirrors for this. So in the sharing of it, something beautiful seems to happen, or apparently happen, as Tony would say. I'm never sure what that apparently means, but like that's in the message. But that the sharing of it enlivens it. There's an energy of the sharing, of the loving of it. Huh?
Yeah,
That's all. Yeah.
absolutely. And you described there was one moment when you were talking, Phyllis. It was I thought it was really beautiful, everything you said there, and somebody really liked the line, "You were not God's little helper." And but what you were saying, that yes, somehow in noticing or hearing that there's nowhere to get, and there's that the Kundalini can rush in this. It's a fascinating, almost paradox when you feel the total hopelessness of it. There's this great cartoon on Netflix called what's it called, The Midnight Gospel, and there's an episode there where this guy is stuck in jail. And it's this philosophical cartoon that's really good. I think it's episode 4 or 5 on Netflix if you have that. But this guy's trapped in jail in this existential prison, and he's trying to get out by he keeps dying and reincarnating back into the same jail cell and reliving it. And he's trying to break free of his karmic bonds. And the final thing for him to let go of is hope. And then somehow the hopelessness brings about freedom. It's very paradoxical, and this is an old Buddhist concept. I want to read some of this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, Mark Smith says, nothing needs to happen. The next moment does not have to be better than the last. Seeking is always a rejection of what is. Absolutely, Mark. Great point. And Sheila, feel free to unmute yourself. It's great to have you here, Sheila.
Thank you. What was I going to talk about? I'm married, okay, and I have a good friend who's basically Hindu. She lived in an ashram, and she always talks about what you should be doing your dharma. You're not doing it. You're not doing it. Blah blah blah. But I was thinking about that yesterday, and I thought, well, I love what Phyllis just said about hope. I have to think about that one. I really do. And that is always enjoyable to find something I have to think about. But getting back to living with a person, he's got Asperger's. And you mentioned the mystical mosquito. I'm mystical too. And which means I see and hear and feel and know all kinds of things out of the ordinary. But anyway, they're ordinary for me now. And he and I got together. I could perceive it happening before it happened. And I believe that was important. And I guess the point I'm trying to get to is when I'm in the dual world, I have to, Houston, what? Oh, you're busy. When I'm in the dual world, it's important for us to learn to communicate. It's a goal. But I learned long ago that you can't live your life hoping that something will change. I guess I'm not very clear this morning.
Well, it's okay, Sheila. I guess in the Gita it says, you do what you feel must be done, and it recommends to be non-attached to the result. This is where the famous Gandhi quote comes from: to be the change you want to see in the world. But the other part of that quote is to not expect to know what will come of it. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's what Dharma is. It's just Well, somebody else wrote something here. Yeah, Glenn wrote something really lovely in the chat. She wrote, or he, I'm not sure if Glenn, maybe that's a man, I don't know. Non-dual concept opens up a space where this action figure just meanders, jumping around from one thing or another. A childlike flow where the meaning is easy peasy, little pressure.
I love, yeah. Yes. And I read what I originally wanted, I got on to talk about because it was bothering me, was I read something yesterday that someone put on Buddha at the gas pump about enlightenment. And he was saying how lonely he was. Now he's enlightened and he's very alone. He's the only one. He could never have, there could never be. It sounded pretty miserable. It didn't sound like anything anybody would want. And I was involved with a group. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter. Another person but he was awake, or he says, I'll write it down. There's a Oneness University, if you've heard of it. Anybody? No. You have. Thank you, Houston. And before the whatever his name, I forget his name right now, but before he awakened a bunch of people, there was this one man named Stuart Mooney, a nice man, I met him. And he said how lonely he felt, being the only one who was awake, and how he was looking forward to the guru awakening other people, which happened, and I haven't talked to him since then. But maybe I'm not far enough advanced, la-di-da, but
Right. Well, Sheila, I want to interject and just say, I mean, it could show up as anything. Any experience can show up, and the experience is not it. So it's aloneness, it's togetherness, and yeah, I've heard many people describe it this way. There's been moments where I feel like maybe I could relate to that, and then I don't relate to that at all right now. Certainly not while in this Zoom meeting. I don't feel a profound aloneness while hearing so many people that I can relate to in different ways. But then even that relating isn't it. It's like the aloneness isn't it, the relating isn't it. And I think what appears to happen is that people have an experience of a profound nature of some sort. And then the mind comes in 5 seconds later and says, oh, it was aloneness. Oh, it was samadhi. It was the third stage of stream entry. Or, there's all these categories that the mind can't help but do that. It's what the mind evolved to do. But in reality, the mind is held within this. The mind is not separate from the experience or the labeling of the experience. It's not separate from what's prior to the experience or what's within it all that can't be named. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you, Sheila. And let's see, Ben, go ahead and unmute. And then Houston.
Right. Thank you, Art. So I want to preface this with, this is just what is coming to my mind, and it's fully just my perspective, and everyone has their own. But what I feel like has been kind of an underlying theme in my perception of this conversation is what I would describe in terms of reality being quantum instead of binary. And to me, that's what to me is meant by dual versus non-dual. So when you're talking about duality, you're talking about is it one or the other? Is there a self or is there not a self? Is there a doer? Is there not a doer? Is it good? Is it bad? Is there love or pain? all these things. Any concrete, one-sided statement of reality. That's to me duality, that's to me binary. But reality is non-dual. And what that means to me is quantum, is it's not one or the other. It's all Schrodinger's cat. So it's not dead or alive. It's a superposition of both. And it depends fully on observation. So it's like a particle of light. It's also explainable as a wave. Where the particle is depends on the observer. And so each observer in a room will have a different observation of where the particle appears. And it's the same with like electrons in electron cloud. There's a field of probability of where you could observe it to be in one instance. And all of reality is like that. It's, in reality, a superposition of all possibilities, but it just collapses upon observation, each infinitesimal moment. And so it's different for everybody, for every observer, and it's different for every moment. And so if there's a self or not a self, it's both and more and less in different moments. It's paradoxical. It's not binary. It's not fully one or the other. If there's a goal, if you should have goals or not, if you should feel you have free will or not, it depends fully on the moment. And I don't know. For me, the basic conclusion from all this is the like basic Buddhist teachings that life is uncertain, impermanent, and imperfect. And I don't know, this might for some people seem really out there, but for me it's so real and what I perceive and my reality. And things are uncertain and impermanent and imperfect. And something that I've vibed on recently is that because of those things and accepting that reality, I know what I am more and less certain of. I know what is more and less permanent, and I know what is more and less improvable, though never perfectible.
Mhm.
And I think that's massive for me, is just recognizing that it's never going to be perfect. I'm never going to land anywhere. I'm never going to have, there's no final thing. It's always going to be confusing if you try and grasp it in one way or the other, because it's never one way or the other. It's a bit of both and confusing, and the mind wants it to be binary, but it's just not. And the mind wants it to land somewhere and wants to be able to say, there is a self, there is not a self, but you just can't. And sometimes it appears more one way or the other, and that's what you've got, and you go with it. But it's a guess. It's uncertain. It's not a perfect guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, to me, that just got straight to the core of like every instance of my personal life, like working my job, interacting with people. I have my best guesses, but I have no idea. Like whether I'm here or not. It seems like it.
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to take that to my grave. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful, man. That was a really nice riff you went on there. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Sorry, I felt like I might have gone on, but
no, there was a lot of passion behind it. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. The superposition of yes and no, good and evil, right and wrong, truth and false. Yeah, I mean, the quantum physicist, I forget his name, said that the opposite of one deep truth is an equally deep truth. So Yeah, and I want to read, Jack had a really great response, or one that I liked, to this question of aloneness. He said, if personalities are seen as illusions, oh, and someone just replied to it. Okay, if Jack said, if personalities are seen as illusions, the aloneness could be the sudden shock of there truly being no actual solid personas. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, that honestly, Jack, that's the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that, I guess, if I analyze it, but I try not to analyze it because what one person means by aloneness could be very different than another. I mean, it does bring to mind that, Ramana Maharshi was asked about this famous Shankara saying that, he was asked to explain this 3-line piece of prose from Shankara that, Brahman is reality, the world is illusion, the world is Brahman. Yes? So, and the guy said, well, how could those first 2 lines be true? I get that, but how could those be true and the 3rd line be true? How could the world be illusion, but also Brahman? And Ramana said, well, and this is kind of out of character for Ramana to talk like this, but he said that it appeared to him, at least on some relative level, you could say, because the true Ramana is not the relative level. I want to point that out. It's the who am I, it's the silence. But he was speaking on the relative level, and he said that those first 2 lines are understood by many as, and then the 3rd line is sort of, not. That comes afterwards usually for some. So that's what Ramana said. And that might be the case. It's just worth saying because this is the same meaning of there's mountains, then there's no mountains, then there's mountains again. And you hear this with many different speakers describing their experience, and that there might have been a period where everything was nothing and there was no one. And then, as Nancy Nethercutt described, 6 months later, the fullness rushed back in for her. Not necessarily, but that doesn't need to be the experience for everyone. And just because Shankara said it, and my brain can tie it together with something a more recent speaker like Nancy said, I mean, it doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it's scientific. It doesn't mean it's necessary. And if you're listening to this and that doesn't resonate, well, who gives a shit? It's just trust your own intuition, I would say. And I'll also want to, before I go to you, Houston, and then you, Garish, and Harini, I'd love for you to talk again if you want to raise your hand. But yeah, so Glenn responded to Jack and said, shock for no one. So the shock never happened. Yeah, if this concept is seen, then the seer is negated. It arrived here as a profound piece. Yeah, I mean, as long as there's an aloneness that's being experienced, I mean, this reminds me of, when someone said to Ramana, they said, hey, I surrendered fully and it still feels awful. Like my life still sucks, but I surrendered, And Ramana said, well, you didn't, because if you fully surrendered, you wouldn't be having any thoughts of anything. You would just be embracing what is. So I don't know. I feel like I'm getting too philosophical and too many old references here. But here, go ahead, Houston. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Art. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody here today. This is so uplifting for me. Okay, so beautiful, and I really, really, what's happening here is it just seems to be bubbling up, and I thank you all because it's what is and what's happening. Thank you so very, very much. Some of the comments as I was reading through this and thinking, back when we were talking about love and unconditional love, I thought, see, there we go again. We're using this thing called language and meaning, and we all think we know what we're talking about, but we don't have a definition of the word love that works, so that can have no conditions. For example, the meaning of love for me, not anybody else, but for me, it means the word love means inclusion. So when I take unconditional, which means no conditions, there's no value judgments, good, bad, right, wrong, anything. I can include it all because that's what love means for me. That's my definition of the word love. Someone else has a different definition of word of love, and conditional love can be the biggest challenge to unconditional love. Okay, because we all have different meanings for those words. But what I wanted to sort of help try to remind us all is that the mind that we use, that comes out of the energy part that comes out of the brain that we call the mind, it's really not made to understand truth. It's really there to help us create illusion. I mean, to build a building or to create a chair or to create a wheel, at first they didn't exist, but it started in the mind. The idea came, and from thinking about that, it created a chair, it created a wheel. But the mind's not really there to create the truth. It's set up to move from here to there and compare things that happen in duality, which is really just oneness expressing itself. Okay, because it's still all in oneness. We're the ones that take the thing and add time and space and separate it out and make it analog, when it's really just all there at the same time. So that's why everything becomes humorous to me, because I'm playing part of the joke. I mean, I am the joke. My experience, what goes in my mind, it's all humorous for me, even when I get serious for this issue or that issue, or it needs to be said this way or it need to be understood this way. That's all humorous, because it's just me adding meaning that's causing me to trip up in the middle of the joke. So, and wherever and coming from the energy field or the energy psychology field and that sort of thing, one of the things that I'm sure everybody's heard it, that energy flows where attention goes. So if someone's attention happens to go on loneliness, guess what they experience?
Right.
If someone goes on happiness, guess what they experience? It's not, or if that shows up, that's what pulls their attention. That's what pulls all the attention to it. It's not anybody doing anything. It's just that focus that happens from nowhere pulls that all in at that moment. So it could be loneliness, could be sadness, could be joy, could be happiness, could be peace, whatever it is. It just is. And if I don't know if I can celebrate that, but I try.
Houston, absolutely, Houston. That, you know, I had this thing came to me on that line exactly like a week ago. This idea of integration. Someone was asking about integration earlier in the talk, and
that's from time. That's created out of time.
Right. It's well. So a couple things come to mind. One is what you just said, Houston, that energy flows where attention goes. You know, or also I heard, you know, neurons that fire together wire together.
Yeah.
So basically, I think integration, deepening, expansion of whatever, it's like if you're an alcoholic and you keep drinking, there's going to be a deepening of liver damage and brain fog, and there will be more integration into alcoholism.
Correct.
You know, like the integration is just, it's just a word we use to describe the human
time. What happens in time?
Time as experienced through the body.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Like Nisargadatta said that, you know, all we can ever experience is what arises in the consciousness from the body. That's all we can experience. Right. That's all we can express. So that as time goes on, when you are interested in this kind of message, there will be an integration, but you could be becoming a movie buff, and then there will be a deepening of knowledge about movies. This is a deepening
absolutely
of something.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, what we normally, for example, coming from the mind sciences, that's my background. Okay, we say that the unconscious is actually the body. The body is the unconscious. The focus is the conscious. Okay, that's one of the differences that we distinctions we made. That because energy not only flows, but it builds, charges, strengthens wherever the attention goes. And I like what a guy that was awakened for about 20 years, and then the me came back. I like one of the statements he used, and I really love it. He said, "Life is about how many times you can get hooked and unhooked, and then how many times you can do it in a second."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thanks, guys. I appreciate everybody. It's just, I love it all. I love you all. This is great. Thank you so much for today.
Thank you, Houston. And Randall comments that he loves what you're saying, Houston. So
Thanks, Randall. Randall, yeah, I appreciate what everybody said. The flavor of it all, the passion, the sadness, the joy, the celebration. It's beautiful just watching lifing, unfolding, being. Yeah, there we go, using those quote meanings that, and see, that cracks me up that all of us are here at one time were or still are a me or a seeker or something, and that we actually created meaning, and then we try to get other people to get the meaning we've got, and it's so beautiful. I mean, no thing or nothing is so freaking hilarious to do it that way or to do it some other way, but that's what cracks me up. I just it's so lovely.
absolutely,
Thanks.
Houston. Thank you, Houston.
I'll be quiet.
All right. Thank you, Houston. Garish, feel free to unmute yourself.
Hello.
How are you doing, Garish?
Fine.
Good.
Every time I came here, very beautiful people and talk very nice, very deep. We are all beautiful souls actually, and I share little every time what I have experienced. Recently, I am in spiritual experience that I explained before also. We are too busy to find meaning of life every time, and everyone has his own perception about life, or from his background of study or his belief. But in this period, we forget living life actually, and 1 week before, I have some tinnitus problem, and it is little uncomfortable. I can't experience peace in this situation. So suddenly, today I experience we can live with that. We can live without thinking so much because we have power to giving meaning. We have power. We are life. That is important. We are life.
Yeah.
We are life.
We are life.
We are life.
And that tinnitus, yeah, I know that I had a tinnitus problem that came up a few weeks ago, Garish, and it was interesting. So what did this experience, did something shift in your perception of it?
Actually, I thought nature give indication, come to the reality. Stop searching in mind. We thought too much. We give lots of my work to our mind. Sorry, my English is not that good, so please understand. And in this today's lifestyle, our thinking, our expectations, our day-to-day life, earning, lots of thoughts, but we actually missing life, living a life, not missing, actually living a life.
Right. Yeah, it's sort of just.
Life is in present.
What was that?
Life is in present. We are alive.
Yeah.
Just we can't be giving meaning every time.
Right. It's what is, and there's no need to give meaning or to it or anything. Yeah.
We are giving ourselves meaning. Why we are
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Gurish. Thank you.
Thank you, Houston, and one other speaker. Very, very good talk, Phillips.
Let's see. Parini, you had your hand raised a few minutes ago. Would you like to unmute yourself to say anything?
Yeah. I'm feeling I feel as if I'm drunk in this conversation. It feels like I'm drunk. But coming back to what I was saying, I think Ben was talking about goals, and what it's just what is in the moment. And these days, I'm finding myself making vision boards, which was so not in the living in the moment times, like there is nothing to go, nothing to do, nothing to live for, or all of that, and no desires or hopelessness. But these days I just find myself sitting and I'm a graphic designer, so I'm creating mood boards and visualization for myself. It's initially it felt so weird, but it that passion and that fun that I was having to make it, that was like a litmus thing for me, like a litmus test of that was right for me at the moment. So yeah, even having goals can appear. I mean, it's funny. I mean, it's and like you somewhere, and but there is a, I would say that there is definitely a difference between how I made it in the past and how I'm making it in the present. The ease and the trust that I have in whatever is happening right now. Earlier, it felt like, I was trying to achieve something and trying to create a vision board and trying to achieve my goals. And now it just is, it comes from the space of ease that we're talking about. So yeah, I really feel drunk. I don't know what I'm
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parini. No, that was wonderful. Yeah. And it totally lined up with what you said earlier about the creativity just flowing from a place of ease now, more so. Yeah. Yeah, and goals, creative goals are great, and it'll always lead to more. And it's all just the dance of life. There's no end to this dance. Let's see if there's someone else who hasn't spoken yet. I'm just curious. Just want to name those who haven't spoken yet that are here. Well, Howard, you raised your hand a few times, and maybe you'd like to speak.
Sure. I thank you, Art. Everybody has been really inspirational. I've loved this meeting and appreciate you guys having it. Yeah, I don't have anything to say but to add that for me it seems that it's both dual and non-dual simultaneously, obviously. I look at it like this. I cannot know objectively where my thoughts come from. I don't know for a fact that I have a brain that exists in time and space. So going with the assumption that I cannot know that, because I can't even know if I can know that. From that point, everything becomes conceptual. And so that is how simple it is. It's not a single thing. It's not an id. It's not time and space. It's not here and now. It's not infinite. It's absolutely nothing and everything simultaneously, appearing as a me with my past and what I appear to be right now. And that is completely subjective. I have no idea where this here and now could possibly be or what I am, other than my immediate experience and what I think my memory is. But that is the idea of a source for my thought, that I am actually a human being on Earth, existing in time and space, is subjective. I don't know that. So from that position of fact, the only thing I can know is that I can't know. That's the easiest way for me to deal with all of that. Whether it's, a person, or it's non-dual or dual, or contracting into self, or being infinite, or is just this, or, something that you've experienced means something, whatever it may be. All of that, obviously, is just a story about us talking in time and space as different points of intellect. It truly is like birds chirping in trees, and it's beautiful, and I love it. You guys have been great, and thank you for your time.
Howard, that really resonated deeply. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Art. I appreciate it.
Let's see, Vidyuth, or Sean, Steve, Randy, Glenn, Jack, PJ, Lance, anyone who hasn't spoken yet. If you'd like to unmute yourself or raise your hand, please feel free. Garish, you just had your hand raised again a moment ago. Did you want to say something else?
Yes, little thing, just thank you for Houston, a nice talk and lots of learning now from Sir Houston. And thank you. Just I'm saying thank you for very nice talk.
Thank you, Garish. Yeah. Let's see. Phyllis, would you like to say anything else, Phyllis? Yeah.
Not really. I was just listening, and I think the beauty of I don't recall the lady who was just exploding with joy. I think that was just a beautiful moment of sharing that whoosh, that love rushing in, all that joy, or whatever you call it, that energy, just rushing in and whoosh, making you feel drunk and more happy than you can describe. And that's, yeah, even if it's an experience, it's the bestest of the experiences. It's way up there with chocolate cake. So I congratulate her on that, on living that and sharing it with us. Even if we can't have that moment because it's not ours to have, like in a marriage vow, to have and to hold. You never get to have and hold anything. That's why marriages usually don't work. There's no having, and you're trying to hold on to what you don't even have. But that love rushing through her, not trying to hold on to it, it was just like a fountain. You look like a beautiful bubbling fountain, and I just love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to both of you. Yeah, so a lot of gratitude here. Steve says, nothing to say, thanks for everything. Glenn says, so much gratitude for life and all of you, beautiful expressions. Thank you. Yeah, let me see if there's anything else on YouTube comments. Somebody named First Personhood asks, who argues about non-duality? All right. Anders says, Indra's net is infinite, permanent, and changeless, yet the manifestation of Indra's net expands from its initial form, causing the arrow of time and the appearance of change. Okay, thank you, Anders. And Naomi says, thank you for sharing this beautiful gathering. Lone Wolf says, why it triggers negativity and fear as if I am getting brainwashed. It's a good question. If something triggers negativity and fear as if you feel like you're being brainwashed, I would say to take a break, do something else, go with what resonates, Lone Wolf, trust your instincts, Lone Wolf. Maybe you don't need somebody else to make you feel afraid. Maybe you're all right already on your own, Lone Wolf. I'm being a little playful. All right, Randall, go ahead.
I'm enjoying your hosting style, Art. Excuse me. I was enjoying what Perini was saying too earlier. And I've had like tons of these huge awakening experiences, like just like mind-blowing, world-shattering, and some of them are just like absolutely blissful, and others are actually terrifying, from the point of view of like the self. But I don't know what happened lately, but it's just like there was some shift that was so subtle I didn't even notice it really. And but I recognize that I'm in, like, there's a difference in how I'm, like, what I'm focusing on. And like for the creativity part, it's sort of weird because I usually consider myself kind of an artistic, creative person. But lately I've been focusing on like my weakest part of my worldly persona, which is being organized. And I'm like getting into spreadsheets and just like problem solving. And it's really a strange experience, but I kind of like it, which is something I've always like abhorred. The whole like my self-image is that I'm really spontaneous and I don't need any of that bullshit. But so it's interesting to me to sort of watch this kind of this emergence of a different facet of my, the persona that I had never really valued before. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. So
yeah, ever emergent,
yeah.
Always new. Yeah. Let's see, Glenn, I see you on camera now. It's good to see your beard. Would you like to unmute and share or say anything? Glenn, there you are.
All right. Can you hear me?
You're a little quiet, but we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I got slow internet here with the big storm that's outside. Lots of snow coming down. I got about 16 inches, I think, right now.
Wow.
I'm in northern Canada. Yeah. So yeah, I just really appreciate it here. Wonderful group. Opens up the necks, everybody. And it brings gratitude, and I just wanted to come on camera and see you all and have you all just say thank you. Appreciate you, Art. Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you, Glenn. Good to have you here. Let's see. Randy, my old buddy Randy. Do you feel like sharing anything today, Randy?
Not particularly. I am enjoying listening. I think I've spoken way too much for like 10 years. So I learned that. I learn lots more, It's, yeah.
It's good to have you here, Randy.
Yep. It's good to see everyone and you.
Let's see, Lance, my old
Can I
buddy
say
Lance.
one more thing?
Oh, someone else? Howard.
Sure. Yeah. Yes. If we got a minute, sure.
Go ahead.
I think what I was trying to say earlier, a lot of times when people are talking about just this, and people within the context of a Q&A get confused. What is just this? And what I meant by the conceptual self being as much as an appearance as what I'm saying is to negate the conceptual self is to try to complete something, that is already whole. Because what appears to be you observing other things, all right, in this guise of separation, is all that is, while being not, it is not what it is. So it is and it is not, just as the self is and is not. Existence itself does exist as an appearance, but does not exist as it appears. So it does and does not exist. And that's the way I see it. It's both simultaneously in something other than temporal dimension. I mean, it just appears as time and space in the immediate experience, but it's not, and it's not a self, it's not separate, it's not relative to any other position, but it appears to be like a person experiencing a small slice of an immense, infinite, possibly unknowable space and time universe where cause and effect and, time and space rule. But that is the illusion of an individual that is observing separate, objects in time and space. And that's not what it is. Simultaneously, that's all that appears. So, for me, I don't spend a lot of time worried about, is there a self or is there not? Because it's both. In my humble opinion, it's both and neither. And I just wanted to, put that in. I really appreciate the time. Thank you very much. You guys are great, actually. This has been a wonderful, wonderful meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Howard. Yeah. Reminded me a lot of what Ben was saying earlier about there being a self and no self, or not caring which one it is. It could feel either way at any point, and that's just what's happening. Yeah, so Lance wrote in the chat, the energy of seeking and the suffering that accompanies it seems to have died, and I have been traveling lighter, but a fear keeps popping up that the seeking energy will return. Not sure if there's a question in there, just curious if anyone has any thoughts. I mean, yeah, I'd say, Lance, that you just keep going, Sounds like you're on the right track, and whatever fear that's popping up that the seeking energy will return. I remember Paul Hederman said that you eventually just stop caring about trying to remember any of that shit, I think is how he put it. I know there was an F or S swear word in there somewhere with Paul, but yeah, basically, it's, yeah, you reach a point where you stop caring to try to remember what used to bother you or what seeking used to mean. I think at a certain point, the word seeking or seeker didn't really even make sense to me. And I can't remember feeling like a seeker, strangely. But I know I probably would have said otherwise a few years ago. I'm sure I would have, but I don't really remember or care to try to remember necessarily. It's just, but then I don't think that's anything special either. I think that everything is just always changing. Like Randall was saying, there's just an ever emergent newness to how our brain is going to frame this and how our body is going to experience it. So it's always wholeness appearing as, an infant, as a 38-year-old, and everything in between and after, and, it's a Zoom meeting. That's what's happening. We're having a Zoom meeting. And Randall says, maybe be curious about the fear of seeking energy returning. Yeah, curiosity is great. Yeah, so, let's see. We have 13 minutes left. Vid Youth. Yeah, and I'm guessing, Jack, you probably don't feel like getting on camera, but it's great. Oh, wow. You left as soon as I said that. Oh, no, there you are. You're on camera. Goodness. Would you like to say hello, Jack?
Sure. I'm just happy to be listening. I have the same kind of drunk feeling that Perini was saying, and I walked the dog this morning and I already had kind of like a wow, and now it's just listening to everybody. It's just sort of the same kind of wow, and it feels really sweet. I'm just happy to be here. That's all. I just feel really grateful to hear this and to get the buzz and to feel the energy and just yes, 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 yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, meeting, it's just an open discussion. Let's see if anything else is on YouTube. Anders says, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha, which they heard from Paul. Absolutely. Lisa Firth says, smiles and love is what's happening here. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah. So, anyone else who wants to speak in the meeting? Yeah, go ahead, Phyllis.
I just wanted to address the question of the seeking energy, and it's It will the fear, a fear appears and it will disappear, and the seeking energy will come back or won't come back, and the freedom is knowing that it's not your call, huh? That's the wind will bring the suffering back or not. So just enjoy the freedom, that immense oxygen, that immense of no suffering, no seeking, everything being new, fresh, beautiful, clean, unborn, every minute unfolding. And who cares about the fear? If something happens, and eventually all these bodies are going to die. We can't sit around thinking of all day, oh, is this the day I'm going to die? No, if that seeking energy has calmed or has recessed, hallelujah, huh? Just bask. I'd say it's not I can't give any advice. I say when that happens, how can we not bask in the glory of it? Huh? The glory of, for a moment, I'm not seeking. I'm it. This is it, and I'm it. And there can only be that buzz that the last person was talking about, that sort of zippy feeling, huh? Of wow. Yeah. And whatever happens later, there is no later next. This now zippy feeling of enjoying and no seeking, that can be it. That can be it. It is it. It's sort of I'd say, just share the hallelujah.
Amen. Thank you, Phyllis. Randall.
Yeah, I just want to kind of say what everybody others have been saying. It's like this has been a really wonderful meeting, and I'm noticing how I'm feeling, like this just really calm, settled beingness, and this kind of bubbly feeling in my gut. And I really like that there's like nobody in charge. It's just, however much anybody wants to engage with it, and it's just really, really satisfying and sweet. And Art, I think you play the host really well. So I appreciate your presence. Thank you.
Thanks, Randall. Yeah. Thanks for being part of it. And so just I wrote this in the chat and in the YouTube comments, but I host meetings like this twice a week, every week, that don't get published to YouTube. So anyone who's interested can just send me a message on Facebook and I'll give you the details. Or if you're not on Facebook, look in the YouTube comments and you could email me at the email address there. We meet every Sunday, 1 to 3 Central Time, and every Wednesday, 7 to 8:30 Central Time, which is my time zone. So, yeah. So, and we have this meeting, of course, the third Friday of every month. Yeah. So, let's see, Ben, do you have any other thoughts you'd like to share?
I guess the only thing that had really come to mind, which is just like something I said the other day. This is all just like different ways of saying the same thing, and this is more of that, I guess. But it's just that it's uncertain, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Absolutely. Parini, I'm just curious, are these physical mood boards you've been working on? And if so, I was wondering if you have one you'd like to share with the group.
Oh, no. It's online.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'll definitely share it on the chat maybe.
Yeah, you could post a link. Yeah. Well, Garish, go ahead.
One question to actually, I have just my mind. Madam Phyllis, Lots of time I saw that the spiritual person or the seekers have some OCD. So please guide us, little guidance. You need guidance. I need guidance. Hello.
I'm sorry. I didn't understand that.
I saw lots of time, lots of people I saw who's seeker or in spirituality, they have OCD problem, obsessive compulsion disorder.
OCD.
OCD.
So please give little your.
So you've noticed a lot of seekers can be obsessive compulsive. Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Phyllis? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, no, not really. That's just what's appearing.
Yeah.
That's just what's appearing, and it'll stay as long as the energy. It's like the wind. It stays as long as it wants to. The wind stays, and then the cloud stays, and then it's gone. But I'd say the person, if the person is suffering from the OCD, it could be appropriate to see a therapist and deal with that. It could be based on trauma or an anxiety. And since it is of the person, of the character, of the personality, why not try to help yourself deal with it? You know, it's like if someone has an eating problem or an anxiety problem or Asperger's or autism, they'll go see the appropriate therapist and help yourself. That's why they're there. That's part of the whole as well. All these helpers that are out there to help the persona feel better in the body and mind.
Yeah.
Get help. There are helpers, and there's nothing wrong and non-dual. I'm not being non-dual if I'm seeing a therapist. No, I'd say, congratulations, you're knowing yourself. That knowledge is making yourself more spaciousness, and the more spacious you are, the more that love could come rushing in. And so, trying to help yourself get rid of the OCD. That will be applauded by life. It cannot be any other way. Life will applaud you for it.
It's a wonderful response, Phyllis. Thank you, and thank you for that question.
Thank you.
So there's been a request from 2 people in the chat to have a break of silence, and we have really just 2 or 3 minutes left in the meeting anyway. So let's end our meeting with a bit of silence, and then we could say goodbye in 2 minutes. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Art. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great meeting.
Appreciate it, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Lots of love, huh? Lots of love to everybody.
Been great. Thank you all. Mwah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Art.
Thank you. Thank you, Emerson.